Marcus Chen never thought his life would end in an alien death arena. He was just a cargo hauler, moving supplies between Earth colonies on the outer rim. His ship was small, his crew was just him, and his biggest worry used to be making rent on time. That all changed when the Krell found him. The Krell were a species that had turned violence into entertainment. They traveled the galaxy looking for creatures to fight in their arenas. They didn't care if you were willing or not. They didn't care if you had a family waiting for you. They just took what they wanted, and what they wanted was blood. Marcus woke up in a cage made of some kind of energy field. His head hurt, and his mouth tasted like metal. Around him were other cages, each holding a different alien species. Some were huge, covered in scales and spikes, and others were small but moved with deadly speed. All of them looked terrified or angry. Marcus felt both. A voice boomed through the holding area. It spoke in a language Marcus didn't know, but a translation device embedded in his ear converted the words. "Welcome, gladiators. You have been chosen to fight for the glory of the Krell Empire. Those who survive will live to fight another day. Those who fall will be forgotten." Marcus looked down at his hands. They were shaking. He wasn't a fighter. He'd never even been in a real fight before. Sure, he'd done some basic self-defense training back on Earth, but that was years ago. He was 32 years old, average height, average build, nothing special, just a regular human trying to make a living. The cage next to him held a creature that looked like a giant mantis made of crystal. It clicked and hissed at him, its razor-sharp limbs scraping against the energy barrier. On his other side was something that resembled a blob of living shadow with too many eyes. Marcus swallowed hard. How was he supposed to survive against things like this? The energy fields dropped without warning. Before Marcus could react, guards appeared. They were Krell warriors, tall and covered in dark armor that seemed to absorb light. They herded the captives through corridors using shock weapons that delivered painful jolts if anyone moved too slowly. Marcus kept his head down and followed the others. They emerged into the arena itself, and Marcus felt his stomach drop. The space was enormous, easily the size of 10 football fields. The ground was covered in red sand that looked like it had been stained by years of spilled blood. Yet around the arena, rising up in massive tiers, were seats filled with thousands of alien spectators. They cheered and roared, excited for the violence to come. Above the arena, holographic displays showed close-ups of the fighters. Marcus saw his own face appear on the screens, along with text in the Krell language. The translator in his ear spoke the words, "Human, species designation, prey class. Estimated survival time, 4 minutes. 4 minutes. That's all they gave him. The crowd laughed when they saw the estimate. To them, Marcus was already dead. He was just entertainment, something to watch die before the real fights began. The arena master's voice echoed across the space. "The first contest will be a battle royal. 10 fighters enter. 1 fighter leaves." "Begin!" Marcus barely had time to process what was happening before the crystal mantis lunged at the nearest fighter. The arena exploded into chaos. Creatures attacked each other with claws, teeth, weapons they'd somehow hidden, and abilities Marcus couldn't even understand. One alien seemed to teleport short distances, another breathed fire hot enough to melt the sand into glass. Marcus ran. It was all he could think to do. He sprinted toward the edge of the arena, looking for cover, looking for anything that might help him survive. Behind him, he heard screams and roars. The sand beneath his feet was already turning dark with alien blood. A piece of debris from a shattered weapon landed near him. It was a metal rod about 3 feet long, jagged at one end where it had broken. Marcus grabbed it without thinking. It wasn't much, but it was something. A shadow passed over him. Marcus looked up just in time to see a flying creature diving at him, its talons extended. He dove to the side, rolling across the sand. The creature missed, but circled back for another pass. Marcus's mind raced. He couldn't outrun something that could fly. The creature dove again. This time, Marcus didn't run. He waited until the last possible second, then thrust the metal rod upward with all his strength. The creature's own momentum drove it onto the improvised spear. It shrieked and crashed into the sand, thrashing. Marcus pulled the rod free and kept moving. His heart pounded in his chest. His breath came in ragged gasps. Around him, the number of fighters was dropping fast. Yet the crystal mantis had killed 2 others and was now locked in combat with something that looked like an armored bear. The shadow blob had enveloped a smaller creature and was slowly dissolving it. Marcus spotted a pile of broken equipment near the arena wall. He ran for it, hoping to find better weapons or maybe just a place to hide. As he ran, another fighter spotted him. This one was humanoid, but covered in green scales, with a mouth full of needle-sharp teeth. It carried a crude axe made from scavenged materials. The scaled fighter charged at Marcus, swinging the axe in wide arcs. Marcus backpedaled, using his metal rod to deflect the blows. Each impact sent shocks up his arms. The creature was stronger than him, and it knew how to fight. Marcus was purely on the defensive, barely avoiding strikes that would have split his skull. He tripped over something in the sand and fell backward. The scaled fighter raised its axe for a killing blow. Marcus's hand closed around what he'd tripped over. It was a chunk of broken armor plating. Without thinking, he hurled it at the creature's face. The metal struck its eye, and the creature howled in pain, stumbling back. Marcus scrambled to his feet and swung his rod with everything he had. It caught the creature across the side of the head with a sickening crack. The fighter dropped. Marcus stood there, breathing hard, staring at what he'd done. He'd just killed someone. Something. His hands shook worse than ever. No time to think about it. The crowd was roaring louder now. Marcus looked around and realized there were only 4 fighters left, including him. The crystal mantis, the shadow blob, and a massive creature that looked like a rhinoceros made of living stone, and Marcus. The stone rhino charged at the shadow blob, apparently deciding it was the biggest threat. The 2 massive creatures collided with earth-shaking force. The shadow blob wrapped itself around the rhino, trying to dissolve its rocky hide, but the rhino thrashed and smashed the blob against the arena floor repeatedly. That left Marcus and the crystal mantis. The mantis turned its faceted eyes toward him. It had killed 4 other fighters and barely had a scratch on it. Its crystalline blades gleamed in the arena lights, still dripping with colorful alien blood. Marcus knew he couldn't beat this thing in a straight fight. It was faster, stronger, and built for killing. He needed an advantage, needed something the mantis didn't expect. His eyes scanned the arena desperately. The mantis advanced slowly, almost casually. It knew it had won. The crowd was chanting something in the Krell language. The holographic displays showed odds for the remaining fighters. Marcus's survival probability had actually increased to 12%. It wasn't much, but it was better than 4 minutes. Marcus backed away, circling. The mantis matched his movements, cutting off escape routes. It was herding him, playing with him. Behind Marcus, the stone rhino finally crushed the shadow blob with a devastating stomp. Now, there were 3. The ground beneath Marcus's feet felt different. He glanced down and saw that he'd backed onto a section of sand that looked darker, wetter. It was blood-soaked from earlier fights, so saturated that it had turned muddy. An idea formed in his mind. It was crazy, but crazy was all he had. Marcus pretended to slip in the wet sand, going down on one knee. The mantis saw its opportunity and lunged forward, its blades aimed at Marcus's neck. But Marcus wasn't actually off balance. He'd been ready. As the mantis came in, he grabbed a handful of the wet, muddy sand and hurled it directly at the creature's eyes. The crystal mantis recoiled, its vision blocked by the muck coating its faceted eyes. It made a high-pitched screaming sound and slashed blindly. Marcus rolled under the wild attacks and swung his metal rod at the creature's legs. The rod connected with one of the mantis's thin limbs, and he heard something crack. The mantis stumbled. Marcus didn't give it time to recover. He jumped on its back, wrapping one arm around what passed for its neck while stabbing down with the rod over and over. The crystal armor was tough, but Marcus found gaps between the plates. He drove the rod in deep, using all his weight. The mantis thrashed and spun, trying to throw him off. Its blades came around, slicing deep into Marcus's side. Pain exploded through him, hot and terrible, but he didn't let go. He couldn't let go. If he fell off now, he was dead. With a final desperate thrust, Marcus drove the rod into what he hoped was something vital. The mantis made a sound like shattering glass and collapsed. Marcus rolled away, clutching his bleeding side. The wound was bad. He could feel blood soaking through his clothes, warm and sticky. The crowd had gone silent. Marcus struggled to his feet, swaying. And there were only two fighters left now, him and the stone rhino. The massive creature turned to face him, snorting. It pawed at the ground, ready to charge. Marcus knew he couldn't survive another fight. He could barely stand. Blood dripped from his fingers onto the red sand. The rhino lowered its head and charged. Marcus did something that surprised everyone, including himself. He ran toward the rhino instead of away from it. As the creature built up speed, Marcus waited for the right moment, then threw himself to the side at the last instant. The rhino thundered past, unable to stop its momentum. It crashed into the arena wall with tremendous force. The impact stunned the creature. Marcus saw his chance. Near the wall was a piece of broken equipment, something that looked like it had once been a blade. Now he grabbed it and climbed onto the dazed rhino's back. The creature was starting to recover, shaking its massive head. Marcus raised the blade with both hands and brought it down on the back of the rhino's neck, right where the stone hide had cracked from the impact with the wall. He struck again and again, each blow sending agony through his wounded side. On the fifth strike, the blade found something vital. The stone rhino shuddered and then went still. Marcus slid off the creature's back and collapsed onto the sand. He'd won. Somehow, impossibly, he'd won. The crowd's silence broke into a deafening roar. Some cheered, some booed. The holographic displays showed his face, now covered in blood and sand, with new text, human, survival time 27 minutes, status, victor. Guards appeared and dragged Marcus from the arena. He barely noticed. Everything hurt. His vision was getting blurry. They threw him into a medical pod of some kind, and machines began working on his wounds. The pain faded into a dull ache as drugs flooded his system. Through a window in the pod, Marcus could see other captives being brought in. Tomorrow there would be another fight, and another, and another. He'd survived one battle, but how many could he survive? How long before his luck ran out? As consciousness faded, Marcus thought about Earth. He thought about his tiny apartment in the colony on Titan. He thought about his sister, who he hadn't talked to in 2 years because they'd had a stupid fight about something he couldn't even remember now. He thought about all the things he'd never done, never said, never experienced. He'd been given 4 minutes to live. Thought he'd lasted 27, but the Krell weren't done with him. This was just the beginning. When Marcus woke up, the medical pod had healed most of his injuries. The deep gash in his side was now just a pink scar. His other wounds had vanished completely. The Krell technology was impressive, he had to admit. They wanted their fighters healthy so they could fight again. A guard opened the pod and gestured with a shock weapon. Marcus climbed out slowly, testing his body. Everything worked, though he felt stiff and tired. They led him to a new cell, larger than the first one. Inside were other fighters who had survived their matches. Marcus recognized a few species from his time in the cargo business, though he'd never seen them as fighters before. There was a Vex, a species known for their mathematical minds and peaceful nature. And there was a Thorian, usually traders and merchants. All of them looked as confused and scared as Marcus felt. "You're the human," one of them said. It was a creature that looked almost like a large cat, but with 6 legs and speaking through a translator collar. "We watched your fight. How did you do it? You shouldn't have been able to win." Marcus sat down on the hard bench that served as furniture in the cell. "I don't know. I just didn't want to die." The cat creature made a sound that might have been a laugh. "None of us want to die. But wanting and doing are different things. The Krell chose you because they thought you'd be easy prey, something to warm up the crowd. But you survived. For now," Marcus said quietly. "There'll be another fight. And another. Eventually, I'll lose." "Maybe," the Vex said, speaking up for the first time. Its voice was soft and musical. "Or maybe you'll keep winning. The Krell love an underdog story. If you keep surviving, they'll make you famous. They'll bet fortunes on your matches. And if you become famous enough, valuable enough, they might keep you alive longer." It wasn't much hope, but it was something. Marcus leaned back against the wall and closed his eyes. He needed to think. He needed to figure out how to survive not just one more fight, but many. He needed to become more than just a lucky human who'd won a single battle. He needed to become a fighter. The days that followed blurred together. The Krell gave their fighters basic food and water, enough to keep them alive, but nothing more. Marcus learned to eat the gray protein paste they provided without tasting it. He learned to sleep, despite the constant noise of the arena above, where fights happened around the clock. And he learned to train. In the cells were other survivors, fighters who had won multiple matches. Some of them, surprisingly, were willing to share what they knew. Not out of kindness, Marcus realized, but out of boredom and the basic need for social interaction. A creature called Vrak taught Marcus how to read an opponent's movements, how to spot the tiny tells that came before an attack. Vrak was a reptilian species with 4 arms and had survived 12 matches. "Watch the shoulders," Vrak would say in his hissing voice. "Watch the feet. The body knows what it will do before the mind gives the order." A Thorian named Kess showed Marcus how to find weapons in the arena. "Everything can be a weapon," she explained. Broken equipment, pieces of the fallen, even the sand itself if you know how to use it. The Krell don't give us tools, so we make our own." Marcus absorbed everything. He practiced movements in his cell until his muscles ached. He visualized fights, imagining different opponents and what he would do against them. He studied the other fighters, learning their strengths and weaknesses. His second fight came 4 days after his first. This time, it wasn't a battle royal. It was one-on-one. Marcus against a warrior from a species called the Dresk. The Dresk was bigger than Marcus, with thick armor plating and claws like knives. The crowd cheered when the match was announced. They remembered the human who'd somehow survived his first fight, and they wanted to see if he could do it again. Marcus stepped into the arena with his heart pounding. But his hands were steady this time. He knew what to expect. He knew the feel of the sand beneath his feet, the roar of the crowd, the smell of blood and fear. He'd been here before. He'd survived before. The Dresk charged immediately, all aggression and confidence. But Marcus had learned. He didn't panic. He moved aside and let the creature's momentum carry it past him. As it turned for another attack, Marcus grabbed a shard of broken metal from the sand and blocked the Dresk's claws. The fight lasted 8 minutes. Marcus took hits that left bruises and cuts, but he gave back better than he got. He used every trick Vrak and Kess had taught him. When the Dresk finally fell, Marcus was still standing. The crowd went wild. His third fight came 2 days later, then a fourth, then a fifth. Each time Marcus won, sometimes barely, bleeding and broken. Sometimes more easily, using his growing skills and experience. The medical pods put him back together after each match, and he went back to his cell to train and prepare for the next one. Other fighters started to notice. The human who should have died in his first match was still alive after 5, after 10, after 15. The odds on his survival started to shift. The Krell bookmakers were taking massive bets on his matches. Marcus Chen was becoming famous. The arena had become Marcus's entire world. He'd stopped counting the days. Time was measured in fights now, win or die. Those were the only options that mattered. After his 20th victory, something changed. The guards came to his cell in the middle of what passed for night and took him to a different section of the facility. And they led him through corridors he'd never seen before, past luxury viewing boxes where wealthy Krell watched private matches, past training facilities that looked nothing like the cramped cells where the regular fighters were kept. They stopped at a door that slid open to reveal a room that was almost comfortable. There was a real bed, not just a bench, a window that looked out at stars instead of blank walls, a personal hygiene station. It was still a cage, but it was a nicer cage. "You've been upgraded," the guard said through his translator. "You're worth too much to keep in standard holding. The arena master wants you healthy and strong for the championship matches." Championship matches. Marcus had heard whispers about them from other fighters. In special events where the best gladiators fought for the entertainment of the Krell nobility. Fighters who made it to the championships were celebrities, at least until they lost and died. The guard left, and Marcus was alone in his new cell. He sat on the edge of the actual bed and tried to process what was happening. He'd gone from cargo hauler to condemned prey to celebrity gladiator. His face was on promotional materials throughout the arena. Alien children had toys modeled after him. The Krell had given him a title, the Human Survivor. He hated it. He hated all of it. But hate didn't change anything. Hate didn't get him out of this place. So Marcus did what he'd been doing since that first fight. He survived. Training became more intense. The arena provided him with equipment now, basic weights and practice weapons. And they even assigned him a coach, a former gladiator who had won enough matches to earn his freedom. The coach was a Krell named Thex, and he was brutal in his instruction. "You fight like you're still prey," Thex would growl during their sessions. "You react, you defend, you wait for opportunities. That won't work in the championships. You need to be the predator. You need to create opportunities." Marcus learned to be aggressive. He learned combinations, how to chain attacks together so his opponents couldn't recover. He learned to control the pace of a fight, to make his enemies respond to him instead of the other way around. His body changed too, becoming leaner and harder. The constant fighting and training had turned him into something he barely recognized. His 25th fight was against a champion from another arena. But the Krell had arranged an inter-arena match, bringing in a fighter with 40 wins under his belt. The creature was called Zalcor, a predator species that looked like a cross between a tiger and a scorpion. It was massive, fast, and had killed every opponent it had ever faced. The betting on the match was insane. Fortunes changed hands based on the outcome. The arena was packed with Krell nobility who had come from across their empire to watch. Marcus stood in the preparation area listening to the crowd roar and realized that he wasn't afraid anymore. He was angry. He was angry at the Krell for taking him, angry at himself for becoming what they wanted, angry at the universe for being so cruel and random. He channeled that anger, let it fuel him without controlling him. Thex had taught him that too. But emotion could be a weapon if you knew how to use it. When Marcus walked into the arena, the crowd's roar was deafening. His name appeared on the holographic displays in letters 10 feet tall. Zalcor entered from the opposite side, and even Marcus had to admit the creature was impressive. It moved with the confidence of a being that had never known defeat. The match began, and Zalcor attacked with overwhelming force. It was faster than anything Marcus had fought before, its strikes coming from multiple angles at once. Marcus's training with Thex kicked in. He didn't retreat or defend. He attacked into Zalcor's assault, disrupting the creature's rhythm. They fought across the entire arena. Marcus bled from a dozen wounds. Zalcor's natural armor was cracked in several places. The sand beneath them turned dark and wet. But the crowd was on their feet, screaming themselves hoarse. This was the kind of fight the Krell lived for, two killers pushing each other to the absolute limit. Marcus caught Zalcor's tail as it whipped toward him and used the momentum to swing the creature off balance. As Zalcor stumbled, Marcus drove his weapon, a blade he'd scavenged from a previous opponent, deep into the gap where the creature's neck met its shoulder. Zalcor roared and thrashed, but Marcus held on, driving the blade deeper until the champion went still. The arena fell silent for a heartbeat. Then the noise that erupted was unlike anything Marcus had heard before. He'd just killed a 40-win champion. He'd done what was supposed to be impossible. The holographic displays updated his record. 26 wins, 0 losses. After that fight, everything changed again. Marcus was given better quarters, better food, better equipment. The arena master himself came to visit, a Krell noble who wore robes that probably cost more than Marcus's old ship. "You've become quite the investment," the arena master said, studying Marcus like he was an interesting specimen. "Do you know how much revenue you've generated? The betting, the merchandise, the viewing fees, you're worth more alive than most Krell earn in a lifetime." "Then let me go," Marcus said. He knew it was pointless, but he had to try. The arena master laughed. "Let you go? Why would I do that? You're just reaching your peak. The crowds love you. The other arenas fear you. No, human, you're not going anywhere, but I'll make you a deal. Win 50 matches and I'll grant you privileges. A say in who you fight, when you fight. Access to the best training and equipment in the Empire. You'll live better than most free citizens." 50 matches. Marcus had won 26 and had barely survived most of them. The idea of 24 more seemed impossible, but what choice did he have? "What happens after 50? Marcus asked. The arena master smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "That's up to you. Maybe you'll want to keep fighting. Maybe you'll want to coach other fighters. Maybe you'll earn enough credit to buy your freedom. 50 wins, human. That's the goal." The weeks that followed were the hardest of Marcus's life, and that was saying something considering he'd spent months fighting for his life in an alien death arena. The opponents got stronger, more skilled, more dangerous. The arena master was pushing him, testing his limits. Marcus fought warriors from species he'd never heard of. He fought creatures that could breathe fire, that could phase through solid matter, that could read minds. He fought teams, handicap matches where he faced multiple opponents at once. And somehow, impossibly, he kept winning. His 35th victory came against a fighter who used technology, hidden weapons and shields built into her armor. Marcus won by being unpredictable, by fighting in ways that made her technology useless. His 40th victory was against a psychic who could predict his moves. Marcus learned to act without thinking, to let his body move on pure instinct, and the psychic couldn't read what Marcus himself didn't know he would do. Between fights, Marcus trained harder than ever. He studied recordings of his matches, looking for weaknesses in his technique. He sparred with other fighters, learning from their styles. He became obsessed with survival, with reaching that impossible goal of 50 wins. But something else was happening, too. The other fighters looked at him differently now, not with fear or respect, but with hope. Marcus was proving that prey species could become predators, that the underdog could win, that the impossible was possible. A young fighter, barely more than a child of her species, approached Marcus one day in the training area. "Teach me," she said. "Teach me how you survive." Marcus looked at her, this scared kid who'd been taken from her home just like him, and something in him shifted. He'd been so focused on his own survival that he'd forgotten about everyone else suffering in this place. "Okay," he said. "I'll teach you." He started working with other fighters, sharing what Thex had taught him, what he'd learned through his own experiences. The arena guards didn't stop him. Why would they? Better fighters meant better matches, which meant more profit. But Marcus wasn't doing it for the Krell. He was doing it because it gave him a purpose beyond just surviving. His 45th victory was different from all the others. His opponent was a Krell warrior, one of their own elite soldiers. The Krell had never put one of their own in the arena before, but the crowds demanded it. They wanted to see if the human could beat a true Krell fighter. The match was brutal. Krell warriors were trained from birth to fight. They were stronger, faster, and better equipped than any opponent Marcus had faced. But Marcus had something the Krell warrior didn't have. He had desperation. And he had months of fighting for his life. He had the combined knowledge of dozens of species and fighting styles. When Marcus stood over the fallen Krell warrior, the crowd didn't know how to react. Some cheered, some sat in stunned silence. A prey species had just defeated a Krell warrior in single combat. It wasn't supposed to be possible. The arena master came to Marcus's quarters that night. He didn't look pleased. 5 more fights, he said. 5 more and you reach 50. But know this, human. Every fight from now on will be against the best we have. We can't let you continue to embarrass the Krell people. You'll fight champions, legends, the deadliest creatures in the galaxy. If you survive, fine. You've earned your rewards. But I suspect your luck is about to run out. Marcus met the arena master's gaze without flinching. Then I stopped relying on luck a long time ago. The next 4 fights were exactly as brutal as promised. Marcus faced a champion who had won 90 matches in another arena. He faced a creature that was basically a living weapon, bred specifically for the arenas. He faced 2 opponents at once, both previous champions. And he faced a fighter who'd been enhanced with illegal technology, made faster and stronger than nature intended. He won all 4 fights, but barely. The medical pods worked overtime to keep him alive. His body was covered in scars, even with the advanced Krell healing technology. He was exhausted, running on nothing but will and stubbornness. 1 fight left, number 50. The arena master had promised it would be special. Marcus was right to be worried. When he entered the arena for his 50th fight, he saw what they'd prepared for him. It wasn't a single opponent. It wasn't even multiple opponents. It was a hunting pack of Ravagers, 6 creatures that had been specially trained to work together. Ravagers were apex predators from a death world on the edge of known space. They'd never been beaten in the arena when working as a pack. The crowd was massive. This was being broadcast across the entire Krell Empire. Millions, maybe billions of beings were watching to see if the human could reach 50 wins, or if his incredible run would finally end. Marcus stood in the center of the arena, watching the Ravagers circle him. They were smart, patient. They wouldn't rush in. They'd test him, probe for weakness, then strike when he was vulnerable. He had no weapon. The arena master had decided to make this final fight truly challenging. And the first Ravager darted in, testing his reactions. Marcus dodged and kicked sand into its eyes. The creature retreated and another came from a different angle. This was how they'd fight, he realized. Death by 1,000 cuts. They'd wear him down until he made a mistake. Marcus couldn't let that happen. He needed to change the game. He ran straight at the nearest Ravager, surprising it. Before it could react, Marcus grabbed onto its back, using it as a living shield. The other Ravagers hesitated, not wanting to hurt their packmate. Marcus used the moment to break the creature's neck, then grabbed one of its sharp claws, breaking it off to use as a weapon. 5 left. They were more cautious now, more aggressive. They attacked from multiple sides at once, forcing Marcus to constantly move. He took hits. I felt claws raking his back and arms, but he kept fighting. He killed a second Ravager by driving his improvised claw weapon through its eye. 4 left. Marcus was bleeding badly now. The sand beneath him was slick with his own blood. His vision was starting to blur. The crowd was roaring, but he couldn't hear them anymore. There was only the fight, only survival. The Ravagers sensed victory. They closed in, coordinating their attack. Marcus knew this was it. He couldn't defend against all of them at once, so he didn't try to defend. He attacked the biggest one, the pack leader, with everything he had left. If he was going down, he was taking that one with him. The Ravager tried to dodge, but Marcus was beyond pain now, beyond fear. He was just determination in human form. He got his hands on the pack leader's throat and squeezed. When the other Ravagers tore into his back, but Marcus didn't let go, he squeezed until he felt something break, until the pack leader stopped struggling. 3 left. Marcus stood up, barely. His back was shredded. He could feel broken ribs grinding together, but he was still standing, and the Ravagers had lost their leader. They hesitated, and that hesitation cost them. Marcus moved like a wounded animal, all instinct and violence. He didn't think about technique or strategy. He just fought with pure, desperate fury. When the last Ravager fell, Marcus collapsed to his knees in the bloody sand. The arena was silent. Then, slowly, the Krell began to chant. It wasn't his given title. It was something new, something that sent chills through Marcus even in his battered state. They were chanting, "Legend, legend, legend." Marcus had done it. 50 wins, 0 losses. The impossible goal was reached. The medical pod saved his life that night, though it was close. When Marcus finally woke up, he was back in his quarters. The arena master was there, along with someone Marcus didn't recognize. The stranger wore robes that marked him as high nobility, maybe even royalty. "Human," the stranger said, "you have accomplished something remarkable. In 500 years of arena combat, no prey species has ever reached 50 victories. You've become famous across the galaxy. There are species who view you as a symbol of hope, others who want to study you. The Krell Empire wants to own you forever." Marcus tried to sit up, wincing at the pain that still remained despite the healing. "You said I'd have choices after 50 wins." "Indeed," the arena master said. "And here they are. As option 1, continue fighting. You'll be given the best of everything, and your pay will make you wealthy beyond imagining. Option 2, become a trainer and coach. You'll prepare other fighters and live in comfort. Option 3, buy your freedom, though it will cost you everything you've earned, and you'll be marked as Krell property forever, subject to recall." "Those are terrible options," Marcus said. The stranger smiled. "Perhaps. But there is a 4th option, one I'm offering personally. Come work for me. Not as a fighter, but as something more. There are others like you across the galaxy taken by the Krell. I would have you help me find them, train them, give them a chance to survive. You'd still be bound to the Empire, but you'd have freedom of movement, authority, purpose." Marcus looked at the stranger, trying to figure out the angle. "Why? Why would you do that?" "Because you've proven something important," the stranger said. "You've proven that spirit and will can overcome physical limitations. That's useful. The Krell Empire needs warriors, and if we can turn prey into predators, we have an infinite supply. You'd be helping your own species and others like them." It was manipulation, Marcus knew. They weren't offering him freedom. They were offering him a different cage, one with more room to move, but still a cage. But it was better than the alternatives. And if he could help others survive what he'd survived, maybe that was worth something. "I'll do it," Marcus said. "On one condition. Any human who reaches the arenas gets first shot at my training. I don't care if they're not fighters. I don't care if the odds say they should die in minutes. They get a chance." The stranger nodded. "Agreed. Welcome to your new life, legend." 6 months later, Marcus stood in a training facility, watching a group of newly captured fighters work through drills. Among them were 3 humans, taken from their ships just like he'd been. They were scared, confused, and certain they were going to die. Marcus walked up to them, and they stared at him. They knew who he was. Everyone in the galaxy knew who he was now, the human who'd been chosen as prey and became a legend instead. "You're probably thinking you can't survive this," Marcus said, "that you're not fighters, that you're going to die in the arena." They nodded, unable to speak. "Good," Marcus said. "Use that fear. Let it fuel you. I was a cargo hauler before this, and just a regular guy trying to make rent." but I survived 50 fights against impossible odds. You know why? How? One of them finally asked. Because I refused to be what they expected. They chose me as a victim. I chose to become something else. You can too. It won't be easy. You'll bleed. You'll hurt. You'll want to give up 1,000 times. But if you listen to me, if you learn, if you fight with everything you have, you can survive. And maybe, just maybe, you can become something the galaxy will remember. Marcus saw the change in their eyes. The fear was still there, but now there was something else too. Hope, determination, the same things that had kept him alive. The arena had chosen Marcus as a victim. He'd become a legend instead. Now he'd help others do the same. It wasn't freedom, it wasn't home, but it was purpose. And sometimes, that was enough. In the cells below the arena, more captives waited for their first fights. Some would die in the sand. That was inevitable. But some would survive. Some would learn. Some would become more than prey. And it would all start with a simple truth. They weren't victims unless they accepted being victims. They were survivors. They were fighters. They were proof that humanity and species like them could overcome anything if they refused to give up. Marcus had been chosen for death. He'd chosen life instead. And that choice, that refusal to accept what others decided for him, had changed everything. The arena still stood. The Krell still took captives. The fights still happened. But now, when prey species entered those arenas, they entered with training, with knowledge, with a fighting chance. That they entered knowing that one of their own had done the impossible. Marcus Chen, former cargo hauler, 50-time arena champion, the human survivor, the legend. He'd started as one scared man with 4 minutes to live. He'd become something that would inspire countless others across the stars. The arena had chosen him as a victim. Humanity had made him a legend. And that legend would burn bright enough to light the way for everyone who came after.